The second of our webinar series, which is being delivered by Richard Carruthers of Southampton Career Service. It's nice to see so many of you online this afternoon. Welcome back to everybody who attended our first webinar, and thank you for making it such a great success. And also, huge welcome to anybody who's attending on this is your first LinkHigher webinar. I'm going to hand over to Richard in a moment to let him begin the presentation. Richard works at Southampton University Career Service, where most of his work is with postgraduate researchers, although he does work with postgraduates across the board. He's in his current role for a couple of years now, but I think he's going to say a few words about his background at the beginning of his own presentation. So, Richard, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. Also, thanks very much to everyone for joining us today. Hopefully it will be a useful experience to learn about some networking skills. So a little bit about me to begin with. My name is Richard Carruthers. I'm the Work-Based Development Coordinator here at Career Destinations, which is the University of Southampton's Career Service. What that essentially means I do is I'm out and about networking with employers, with our students, with the academics, local business community, to try and bring in a whole range of activities for our PhD candidates. And through that, we're also filtering into the work that we undertake with our master's students and the work we undertake with our undergraduates as well. So that's a little bit about me. What we're going to be looking at in the session today is networking skills. Firstly, sort of what is networking? So it's a presentation I've given here at Southampton, sort of face-to-face. This is the first webinar I've ever done. And we'll sort of see how it goes as we go along. But some questions maybe for you to be thinking about as we go through the presentation is, what is networking to you? How do you sort of perceive networking, and how is it important? Who uses it? Is it just a business thing, or is it seen in academia as well? And do you like networking, or are you one of the many, many people which is actually kind of scared or nervous and apprehensive of going into a networking sort of environment? And hopefully some of the areas that we'll cover today will help you sort of go into those environments with a little bit more confidence and prepared. So if everything works at this end, should be able to move through the slides. Okay, so what we're going to look at then is what is networking. Sorry about that. If anyone managed to pick up on that, that was my colleague's laptop coming to life. So what we're going to look at then is what is networking and the importance of networks in business. 6 degrees of separation, which some of you may be familiar with, some various elements of networking, and Stephen Covey's emotional bank account, and how that can come into play in all aspects of your life and in networking scenarios. We'll also look at your digital presence in networking, through to the face-to-face setups that you may have, through from career fairs, through to conferences, academic group meetings, etc. Then how to maintain your networks. Then look at some links which you might want to go and look at after the presentation, and we'll be opening the floor then for any questions that you may have. So both Daniel and Naomi are going to be sort of monitoring questions as they come in. We'll try to get through as many of those as we can towards the end of the session. So what exactly is networking? Well, it's an interaction basically between two or more people. It's unique, it's selling qualifications, skills, trying to acquire information from the people involved in that network. So essentially, you're building and sustaining mutually beneficial, and that's the important words that are highlighted up there, is that you're building these networks sort of upwards from scratch at times, and you're making sure that it's sustainably beneficial for both parties involved. So it's a two-way process with lots of communication involved in there. Networking itself can be described very much as a marriage. So you get out of it what you're putting in. If you put a lot of effort into your relationship, then you'll obviously have quite a fruitful time there. And what if you put in less, then it's quite likely will fail. So next slide. Here we go. Networking. So I've got a bit of echo in my ear here. So networking itself, it's finding the common ground in two-way communication, building rapport and trust. And those words will become very, very clear and apparent of how important they are throughout the rest of this presentation. So it's two-way. You need to be putting into the network, not just taking out from the network. It's also all about building trust and relationships as we go along. The impact that networking can have. Well, here I've got Tony Robbins, a life coach over in the United States, and a couple of quotes from him. The the way that he manages his relationships is leading to the degree of his success. So by putting in time, by nurturing and investing in his network, he's actually managing to take out from the network the most that he can. And a very common phrase that you've probably heard, it's not what you know, but who you know. Very true within networks. So finding your next contact of who you're going to go to is all down to how you're managing and using those networks that you build up. So the importance of networks. The American Psychological Association, here's some stats from them. Around about 60% of your success at work is likely to come from who you know. That's actually now been challenged, and looking more at sort of 70–75% is the new sort of academic argument being bounced around. And that's through the fact that jobs are sometimes found through networks. Many of you may be familiar with LinkedIn. Many recruiters sort of targeting now through networks which are out there. In business, it's 9 times more difficult to bring in new business than it is to maintain the current business. So that's down to costs, building the trust and relationships which are there, the customer service which is built in within these business networks that exist. There's also some facts up there that we're looking at of word of mouth down at the bottom. 7 times more likely to bring in business than the traditional marketing. The traditional marketing here is sort of broadsheet papers, billboards, and even using the internet, radio, TV to some extent. Word of mouth is a very, very powerful tool, and that's what is going on in networks. Word of mouth within the likes of the LinkedIn environment, for example, referrals, people that you've worked with in the past, clients that you've worked with, what do they have to actually say about you can really impact how others are going to be dealing with you in the future. So sort of going into networking, it's a good idea to know exactly who you are and what it is that you do, what skills do you possess, what it is that your company does that you're working with, and who are you doing it for. So what's the company all about? What's your research, maybe if you're on a research PhD program or master's? What is your research and what are you doing in that? And what results are you getting? What benefits can you bring in to the network you're going to be connecting with? So I'm going to look at the 6 degrees of separation next. So this is a principle that came along by Stanley Milgram. And essentially, some of you may well be familiar with the 6 degrees. But essentially, it's an experiment. The Small World Experiment was its working title. And 6 degrees has come about as a sort of a word of mouth thing from them. Now, essentially, 160 packages were delivered at random to people in Omaha, Nebraska in the United States, asking them to forward this to a stockbroker in Boston, Massachusetts. And through this research experiment, they were really trying to find out how many packages, how many people is this package going through to connect from the 2 random people who probably don't know each other. Within the documentation which was sent out, the participants, they received a parcel with the specific condition that if you don't know the target person on a personal basis, do not try to contact him directly. Instead, mail this folder to a personal acquaintance of yours who is more likely to know the target person. So what they found is obviously many of these packages did go missing along the route. However, many of them did make their way to the target. And what this is basically demonstrating through the results that the university were collecting was tracing how many people the parcel had gone through before it arrived at its target destination. Now, geographically, there's quite a bit of spacing between Nebraska and Massachusetts. What they found is the first sort of travel was quite a big jump to the general area, and then it would sort of cycle its way around the Boston region until it found a person who was in direct connection. And what they're finding is, on average, 6 was the sort of the number. Since then, there's been lots of rigorous debates and academic scrutiny on this, and various experiments have happened since, based on the fact of the internet revolution through the 90s, early 2000s, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. However, what they're finding is still 5.5 to 7 being the average number of connections to link 2 random people on the planet together. This has been found both within the developed world and the economically developing world. Some other areas which have spun out from this, some of you may be familiar with such games as the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's linking Kevin Bacon to other actors through the various films they've been in, sort of like a popular culture take on that. You also have a film which was released in '93 called The 6 Degrees of Separation with Will Smith, based on principles sort of behind this. One of the things which has also arisen from it is social networking sites such as Facebook launching applications such as the Friend Wheel. So hopefully, if the slide comes up, here we go. The friend wheel, this is basically my Facebook connections. It's an application you can download, and it shows all of your friends and who knows who. Now what you can see is over on the left-hand side up here, you have lots and lots of people who happen to know each other. People at my workplace who've known people, people from my university, from my school, etc. The people down the right-hand side, they know each other in the offices or the environment that they're connected in. So it's kind of demonstrating here that there are quite a few random networks that are set up, but there's also the people who know each other individually. Next slide, really focusing in on the people who I've worked with in an office. They know each other, so they've added each other as friends on Facebook. Very sort of personal area of networking, but they know each other, so they've connected, and these random connections that are set up. And the final slide I've got on this is showing the quite sporadic relationships which can exist that are out there. So some people that I've worked with in an environment have a random connection from one of them to someone else that is in my my Facebook friendship groups. And I'm not certain how it is they've connected, but there's obviously some form of this 6 degrees of separation happening in my own personal life. And I'd be very surprised if other people were to do this and couldn't find these sort of sporadic connections which do exist. So it's really just to highlight the 6 degrees of separation that is out there. So, looking at then some of the elements of networking, and we'll go into these in a bit more detail in a short while. So networking, as we were saying, it's all about trust and rapport. So it's your relationship skills, your communication skills, the two-way communication. How well can you talk about what you do, and how well are you listening to what others have to say? Within that, it captures your emotive skills as well. There's then also networking capital, and I'll move on to that with the emotional bank account, and then the various actual events themselves which you can attend, so your networking events and the group dynamics which take place at those. Underpinning all of this, there are the 3 pillars of networking. Now, in the pillars of networking, you sit at top. You are number 1. You're always looking out for yourself, so you're at the top of the pyramid structure here. You've got the 3 pillars which are supporting you, and these are that people need to firstly know you to be able to network with you. They need to like you, and they need to trust you. Now, if any one of those 3 pillars breaks, your network skills will collapse with those individuals. So, for example, here, the trust has been taken away from the network that you have. Now, this could be maybe an academic supervisor has told you about another academic that they recommend you could speak to this person. They will help you out. They can sort of give you some guidance maybe on that. And you go away and share that with all of your peers in your supervisionary group, and you go on Facebook and you tell friends at other universities. Immediately, you've broken the trust that your academic supervisor had with you. So your network there starts to become a bit more unstable. It's less likely that in future he's going to trust you with those network contacts that he has. You may also be damaging the other pillar there, of he might not like you quite as much as you've sort of been taking away his trust from the setup. Got a short little acronym here before we move on to the bank accounts called LINK, which is Learning, Investing, Nurturing.